This is a special segment for Berbulu dengan Ben, and I'm going to ask him random questions ranging from the last weekend matches and all the way to, we're going to take a walk down the memory lane with him.
How far back are we going to go?
We'll see, and we'll see how far you can remember. Right?
Go on then. Well, I'm a bit tired because we done the games last night. And
right, so talking about the game last night, I'm just going to start the first question with the introduction of the 15-year-old Nwaneri by Arsenal. In that game against Brentford. Just what's your general outlook on that? Because apparently we have conflicting opinions on that. Like some people think, oh, it's such an unrealistic management for them to bench him. Or do you think it's just positive for the young player to be given a chance?
I think there was a general difference of opinion across the board. Some were suggesting that Arsenal's strength and depth for the squad wasn't good if you need to put a 15-year-old onto the bench. But then we looked at his stats. Although he's never featured, obviously in the first team, he's 15 years of age. He's played in the under-21s, so he's obviously a very, very talented young man. So in that respect, he's obviously earned his stripes, as it were. You know, he's been given the opportunity to be in and around the first team, which is great experience for a youngster. You know, just to see how first team players act, you know, when they have pre-match meal or they were away, weren't they? So they would have probably stayed in a hotel. So just to be around the first team, train with the first team, just see what their attitude is like, which is different from academies. And it would have been good for him, really, really good for him, that experience. Then to be on the bench, obviously he probably didn't see it coming. Then he gets the opportunity, so he's got to then deal with that. He's then got to deal with, you know, warming up and being in the crowd and the first team game. So it's great for him. It's great for him. And I think for Arsenal, I think it's a great move forward for them to show that academy players do have the opportunity to get in the first team. Because some football clubs, they have academies, but you never see the products coming through.
Yeah.
You never see the fruits at the end of it. They either sell them or they move on. But if a young man or a young player sees the opportunities there and other players are getting it, then it's you know, it's an objective for him to get in the team.
So I think that aligns with what Arsenal is trying to invent at the club, to bring back the historical move of investing in their youth.
Absolutely,
and also, as what you shared just now, you know, a bigger message has been delivered to the academy talents that, you know, the club is more than ready to provide you the chance. It's just a matter of, do you want to take it now? And it also probably.
Absolutely. I mean, it's a really good point you made, because Arsene Wenger was very good at that, you know, giving young talent the opportunity, and it was up to them. And they had some young talent coming through back in the day. I mean, for me personally, obviously being around Liverpool and being around the academy, Alex Inglethorpe, who is a director of football at the academy, is doing a wonderful job with his staff and his team, you know, bringing them through from, I don't know, they go back, I think, 8 years of age, I think they go into the academy. And, you know, now we're seeing, well, Trent's been around a while, but Curtis Jones, I know we brought in Harvey Elliott from Fulham, but he was 16, so we've nurtured him. There's been some really, really good young talent come through at Liverpool, and they've been given the opportunity by Jurgen Klopp, which is great. And it saves them 90 million quid, because that's how much players are now, aren't they?
When the young talent gets this kind of outlook on how it's like being treated as a first team player and all that, but in one of your interviews back in the day, you also shared how you also came across a lot of managers that do not come off as good man managers, you know, like they can come off as, I don't want to say the word, but I guess I have to say the word, bullies, in like direct bullies in the dressing room, how they would just...
Yeah, I mean, there's different ways of managing in you know, any scenario, whether you're a hotel manager or whether you're a football manager or the manager of whatever. You know, it's your own man management skills, or it's your own skills that you think are going to work and are appropriate for the job. So, you know, we're not all the same. We all think we can get people to do things we want in different ways. And I've played for different managers across the board with all different ideas. Some very tactical managers, some very hands-on and approachable and very good man managers. Peter Reid, Mick McCarthy, Jack Charlton, Roy Evans, you know, they're the ones I personally like, and you know, I'm a great believer in they're the ones that get the biggest results. But I've also been managed by, you could call them bullies, or I'm reading a book at the minute about I know I'm going to digress, but it is in line with the question, about colours and people slot into colours. I don't know if you've seen it. It's called Surrounded by Idiots. And it's you're red, blue, green or yellow, and you fall into each category. And if you know what I'm talking about, I've been managed by people who are red. Oh, so, yeah, so it can be difficult because, you know, I might be I don't know, I think I've stuck myself as a green, I think.
How did it shape your personality in one way, knowing like...
We clashed.
Okay.
We clashed, yeah, and it become very difficult. But there's only one winner when it's a player and a manager. Maybe not this day and age, but back in the day, it was, you know, the manager wins, doesn't he? Because, you know, he can get you out the football club and he can sell you and he can not play you and he can make life very, very difficult, which is basically what happened. So, yeah, it can be difficult. Not that you want to be subservient to that kind of manager, but sometimes you've got to weigh your career up. Yeah. But I'm very much of the man manager, the one who puts his arm around your shoulder or treats everyone as an individual. Talking
about managers being good managers and how if you manage to handle a really good situation in the dressing room, you talk about how you're going to get good results out of that on the pitch. Now, we're going to jump to Leicester and Brendan Rodgers, and he is a good manager and people know the kind of things that he could achieve with his squad back in the day in one situation or another. But assessing how they are now, they can't defend well, they can't execute a good set-piece situation, and there's no obvious pattern in their attacking style. If you were in Rodgers' shoes now, what's the one immediate area that you feel like needs the most priority for you to improve?
Well, first of all, we look at the results, don't we? That's what the industry we're in. And that's the thing that you go to first, and you obviously see them, the rock bottom. I think they're without a win, aren't they? And you're right, you've highlighted, you know, the deficiencies in the team. And it's easy to point a finger at, and you're right, a good coach, it's easy to point the finger at him, and we do. Yeah. You know, the manager's the one that goes first, isn't it, if the results don't come? And, you know, it's the nature of the game. Brendan knows that. As fans and pundits, and we're in the media, we know that's how it works. But you do have to look sometimes underneath the situation of what's gone on, and I do feel for Brendan. Although he has spent money over the years, I do think he's provided success to Leicester. They've got to the FA Cup final. They've been in Europe a couple of times, and they've stayed in the Premier League, which is not an easy job to do. People forget that. But what I would say for Brendan in his defence is, you know, we've had a worldwide pandemic, and the owners of Leicester are in, it's the duty free, isn't it? So they're in the tourist industry, which obviously was one of the sectors that was hit very hard. So you can understand why they're being very cautious when it comes to spending money, and then your financial fair play kicks in as well. Brendan's had to sell players over his tenure at Leicester. You know, Chilwell's gone. What's his name? Harry Maguire's gone as well. Yeah. And then you've obviously this season you've got Fofana who's gone. Cassia Schmeichel. They're big characters in the dressing room. They're good players that he needs around that squad. And obviously he's got Tielemans and Maddison who are out of contract shortly, who probably don't want to be there at the minute. That's not the kind of football and the situation they want to be in. They want to be challenging for titles and playing at big clubs. So it's not that Leicester's not a big club, but when it's not going well, they're not a big club. Yeah. So it's very, very difficult for Brendan. I think we're talking about these situations now. Steve Cooper of Forest, David Moyes. You know, we're talking about these situations because we call this the sacking season. You know, we're moving up to the international date, and it's a touchy time, it's a precarious time, and I think you're right to highlight Brendan as probably being one of the managers that needs to be worried. He feels like his time is almost up. He's the one indicating this kind of message. You feel that that's the message being portrayed. Because he said like, oh no, it's up to the owners, whatever they want to do with me and the situation, right, and the club situation. Do you think that, general question, is it time for him to pack his bags and go, or even if Leicester were to keep him, he's still the right man to guide them through survival? We're talking about survival right now. Is he the right man? I don't think he's lost the dressing room. I don't think the players aren't listening to him. I think, listen, when you're losing football matches, there's a lot of things psychologically that go into it. The confidence, players, they don't want to be accountable for the defeats because the fans want to know what's going on. It's a very, very difficult situation, not a nice situation to be in, so early on as well. The good thing about it being early on is you can turn it around. It's how you turn it around. Can you turn it around? You're right, Brendan's a good manager, but sometimes it just doesn't happen. and you're against the clock. You know, the games are coming thick and fast. You need to win football matches. The crowds are on your back. The pressure is mounting. And sometimes I think, I agree with you, I look at Brendan and he cuts a very frustrated coach, where I am getting the impression now that he's kind of run out of ideas.
Understood.
And, you know, sometimes you don't want it to go on. You kind of think, just cut your losses. Brendan, hold your hand up and say, listen, enough is enough now. And, you know, I'm going to walk away from the job. But then walking away from the job obviously forfeits a payoff. So there needs to be a compromise somewhere between the two, because that's probably where we're at right now.
Understood.
I don't know this, but I assume that's where we're at. And, you know, the owner's probably maybe looking for a fresh voice in the dressing room, different ideas, different tactics. But that new manager that comes in, if a new manager comes in, has still got the same players. You know, there's not like he can go into the transfer market because the window's shut. So, and they don't want to give any money.
Do you think the time that needs to be given to them is quite reasonable? Let's say if they
a new manager,
if they were to come in with a new manager, they would have to wait till the international break for them to come up with a bit more comprehensive solution to it. You can bring some players in, a new manager.
You mean in the new window?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's obviously going to be the ideal opportunity to bring players in, because you can. But it's whether he's going to give the money. And the other thing as well is, you know, there's the business side of it is, you know, people know that Leicester want players. People know that Leicester need to make their squad bigger and better players need to come in, which means the winter window is always a bit of a desperate window for me. It's always teams that need something. Yeah, when you need something, there's a premium on the price.
That's true.
So, you know, it's whether the owners want to go into the market and spend 50 million on a player when they could have got him for 30 in the summer. So it's kind of a really difficult situation, and there are managers out there you think would suit the job, but I'm not sure whether them managers look at that job and think, that's the job for me.
Understood. Yeah.
There
are not much free agents out there as well. Even if there are not much quality.
No, and there's no managers want to take that job. Let's argue for Sean Dyche, for instance. Let's say him, because he seems to be the buzz manager, isn't it? That's out of a job. Is he going to want to think, well, these could go down, and if I take that job, I'm the one that's going to take them down, and that's on my CV. Yeah. And I don't want to be in the Championship because I'm good enough to be in the Premier League. So it's a very, very difficult situation, the Leicester one. Sad, very sad, because I've loved their story. It's been amazing.
Right. Okay, now let's go to this one player that you once mentioned you saw glimpses of, Coutinho in Fabio Carvalho, but we don't want to talk about Fabio right now. We want to talk about Coutinho. How do you enjoy his display at Aston Villa so far, ever since the time they have brought him in?
I think Philippe has struggled, to be honest. You know, I've obviously watched him at Liverpool, watched him, you know, when he signed. Brendan obviously had him as well, and it was, yeah, it was a steep rise to fame, and, you know, he become a world-class player kind of, not overnight, but very, very quickly. Everything went through him at Liverpool. He was the star man, he was the glamour, and he got his move, a very expensive move. It was a good bit of business for Liverpool. Barcelona now are probably looking at it thinking it was a bad bit of business, the situation they're in. But then, obviously, you go to a football club where he's not the main man. You know, Messi's the main man. In fact, there was probably 3 or 4 players who were looked upon as, you know, bigger players with him. I'm not sure if Luis Suarez was there at the time. But Philippe struggled with that, I think. He likes to be the big fish. Yeah. So when the move with Steven Gerrard, which obviously made sense because Steven knew him, when that came around, obviously, I thought, well, Steven could get a tune out of him.
Hit or miss kind of thing?
Yeah, I thought it'd be a hit because he was going to play for someone he knew. They were friends. He became the big fish of Villa, the big star. Yeah. He was coming from Barcelona. He had a point to prove. Usually that kind of combination brings out the best in a player who wants to deliver something. But it's just flashes, and you can't do that in the Premier League, and he knows that. You've got to be constant in the game for 90 minutes. You've got to be a thorn in every team's side. You've got to be productive, you've got to be on the ball, you've got to make things happen, especially when you're that kind of player, because if you're not, you can go missing and people can look at him and think, he hasn't done anything, he's the player to do something. Yeah. So I think he's struggling, to be honest.
last season, I remember when he was brought in, talking about flashes. There were flashes of his effective execution on the pitch in terms of him being central to the attacking plan and all that. But this season, he has been struggling. Like the past few matches, we could hardly see his contribution in terms of that. I just want to highlight the game against Southampton last weekend, where I think that was the first time he actually made that change in the attacking style. Obviously, we can't. I don't think it's realistic for us to hope to witness vintage Coutinho all the time on the pitch. But then that game against Southampton, it was quite efficient, like fluid movement, clever passing, quick feet, and everything. Do you think with that performance, sure, as you mentioned, playing in the Premier League, we need 90 minutes of that. We can't rely on flashes. Brazil has dropped him now. Do you think if he were to sustain that kind of performance, this World Cup, if you were to be picked eventually for Brazil, it will be his last World Cup, because the next edition he will turn 34. Do you think he has that chance, or that chance has long gone ever since he joined Villa?
I think what we're looking at sort of more and more in the modern game is 34 is not that old. You look at Lewandowski and Benzema, what they're doing.
But we don't have much of those players as well, right? In that age bracket.
No, we don't. You're right. And they are different players to Coutinho. Maybe we're being a little bit harsh. Maybe he just needs to adjust. You said you've seen flashes last week of a change, maybe a change of attitude. And again, it's like, they're under pressure themselves. Aston Villa, to get results. Stevens under pressure. It's difficult to put a flair player in the team that you don't trust at that moment in time, because you need everyone, singing off the same song sheet and pulling in the right direction and contributing. And like we've mentioned, Philippe wasn't contributing enough for his standards and Aston Villa's. And obviously Buendia is there as well, so he's fighting for his place alongside Coutinho. They both seem to want to take up the same position. But you're right, we were talking about it last night, and sometimes it's down to the player. The manager can say all he wants. At the end of the day, once you cross that white line, it's down to you. It's down to your attitude, your performance, and what you want to do. And I think you're right. I think it was a better performance by Coutinho, but you want it all the time, and Steven wants it all the time, and Aston Villa need it all the time. So it's big expectations, but he's old enough, he's experienced enough, and he knows what he needs to do. The rest will take care of itself. If you're playing well, the fame, the fortune, and international, they're a byproduct of you playing well. So he knows that. So the opportunity to get to the Brazil team, it's getting smaller because the time frame's getting smaller. But the door's still open. So it's up to Philippe Coutinho.
I agree. And how you mentioned when that there are situations where players had to adjust themselves to new league. I mean, I'm not new league as in he came from that league and then he went out, and then to come back with a new system, even regardless playing for someone that you knew, it's still that Gerrard has his own system which he had to adjust. Also,
just because you play in the Premier League, it doesn't mean you played in the Premier League in a relegation battle. Not that they're in one quite now, but they're certainly at the wrong end of the table, and that brings its own pressure. That's different than challenging for titles and medals and cups, and that's the other end of the table where it can be quite fun.
Talking about pressure at that high level and readjustment and all that, I just want to pick one of the things that I find interesting from one of your interviews. So there's a lot of homework that I do like on his past interviews. So I just want certain points. I just want you to elaborate more, just for me to understand. For example, players at elite level would face mental health issues, depression. Back in the days, you mentioned how there was no source of therapists or psychologists as how we have abundance of that kind of source these days. Well, back in the day, like when you have a bad day in business, what was your source of comfort?
Family. Family and friends, to be honest. That was probably it. It was funny really, the 90s, I've been talking to Scott Minto about it, how like it's changed, and it was a great era to be in some ways, because obviously Sky and TV and money and, the whole attitude towards football has changed. There was still a sort of drinking culture, we called it, back in the early 90s, but that kind of evaporated towards the end of the 90s because of the foreign influence and the foreign managers, where it was kind of frowned upon to drink. And also, there was a big shift in people's perceptions of how footballers should act. Footballers were never sort of I wouldn't say they were always looked upon as role models, but they were very they weren't on cereal packets.
So easy to idolize,
yeah. They weren't on the front of magazines, and it was more obviously on the back pages and stuff. So all of a sudden you've got the likes of, obviously David's here with us, David James, he's doing Armani, you've got Jamie Redknapp, you've got people doing Top Man adverts, you've got people on crisp packets, and you know, fans had to adapt to that because it was change. Yes. Not everyone likes change, and football is a very working man's game, so you know, it was kind of like, oh, what's he doing on a billboard in New York and stuff? He should be in bed waiting, you know, getting ready to play against Manchester United on Saturday. You know, so there was a lot of change in football. I think from what you're saying, certainly from a mental health point of view, you know, it was very difficult in the sense of we were all young boys. People forget how young we were, you know, impressionable, young, earning a lot of money, being in a very pressurised situation, you know, to win football matches for whether it's Chelsea, Arsenal, Liverpool, United. And like I say, because there's a demand for success at that football club from the club and from the fans, that pressure is enormous, especially for a 25, 26-year-old. And it's week in, week out, and you're getting scrutinised because as football was getting bigger, so was the demand for press, news, which meant there wasn't one or two stories, there was 7 or 8 stories. You were always getting judged, marks in the paper, player ratings, you know, and we're human beings at the end of the day, and we do go home and we do look at the newspapers and we do see that some fella thinks I was rubbish on Saturday and give me a 4 in the paper, and it hurts. And you go out and you go for a meal and someone wants to criticise you because you haven't played well, because they've read it in the newspaper, they didn't even go to the game.
I'm pretty sure you face those kind of situations too. Like, well, I don't know, fans, random fans coming to you.
Yeah, and you know, from where I live, Liverpool, it basically is a goldfish bowl. You know, it's very small. As you go out, you either get, if you don't win for Liverpool, the Liverpool fans give you stick. If you do win, the Everton fans give you stick. So you can't win. So you're in this scenario all the time. And as much as we come together and we kind of look after each other, and I was lucky because I had family around me because I'm from that area, you know, it was very, very difficult dealing with it. And I think how we dealt with it back then, there was always going to be an aftermath, which was when we finished. And I think that's why you see a lot of players of my generation struggle when they finish, because it's kind of the come down and it's kind of, we're left a bit scarred. And that's not me, you know, moaning. Listen, I loved my career and it was amazing and I'd do it all again. But it does leave scars, and it was difficult, you know. And the other side of it is when you finish, you're leaving a lifestyle that that's all you know. Yeah. The dressing room, training every day. It's quite regimental because with times, everything's on times. You eat what you're told. So yeah, it wasn't a nice period finishing. It was a very difficult period, but obviously, as time moves on, you know, have to as well. Yeah, and people become more aware, and with awareness becomes more help. Yeah. So football clubs now, you know, my club, who I work with, you know, in all different parts of the club, do a fantastic job now in player welfare. You know, from whether it's an 8-year-old who needs counselling or guidance, the right people are there, and first team as well, right through to the first team. I was away on tour. We take him with us. He comes with us. Lee, ex-player, he's, you know, done all psychology and counselling, and he's there for the players. He just sits in the background, and if the players need him, they know he's there, which is, you know, great in itself, isn't it?
With more awareness, there will be more help. That's such a strong statement as well. And also, I love the fact that you shared how your biggest source of comfort was family back then, because now in today's world, the family is defined in a lot of ways. It doesn't have to be just from your, you know, blood family. You never have a bad game according to your mother. She's always tells you play well. Even when you know you've had a bad game, you go to your mum's. You were brilliant today, son. You were the best player on the pitch. There's a line needs to be drawn between toxic positivity but we get all the support. You know we take whatever support that we need. But just comparing that situation to today's world is very recent. Vinicius Jr., you know, shared a video of how he's very proud to be dancing, and he doesn't care whatever racist comments coming his way. You know, he does his celebration by just dancing in a way that he loves, celebrating culture all over the world. Did you have to use him? Why I have scored the winner in the Champions League final against us. No, look. I was over it until you I have to use him because the weekend matches, I would just go back to EPL, for example. a lot of players all over the leagues in the world, top leagues in the world, they dance, they make sure they share that sentiments of dancing as well post their goal. You know, they celebrated with Vinicius. So I want to link back to the question I asked you just now. Support system coming from family, but now with that awareness, and you know, when there's a racist incident, people would always react positively by showing support as well. Do you think that's really important? We're definitely moving towards the same direction. Things that you probably didn't have back in the day. You didn't, you know, maybe not racist, but you know, any kind of slaughtering
abuse
coming your way. Do you see your teammates openly support you in the media or things like that?
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I can relate to what they're going through now, and things are moving much quicker this day and age because of technology and the way we are. You know, I mentioned it before, for us it was doing magazines and, you know, you're on the front cover of, maybe not Vogue, but fashion magazines, GQ, this kind of stuff. So obviously people had to adapt to that because it was always going to happen. It was part of the game, it was part of the process. What we're seeing now is a very social media culture where that's evolving all the time. I mean, you know, I've got a young son there and he's, you know, all of a sudden it's TikTok and I'm like, what's TikTok?
Yeah.
And like,
do you have a TikTok account?
No.
No? You should have one though.
I'm Twitter and I do Instagram. They're the only two things I know how to do.
Yeah, okay.
And I don't even know how to do them properly.
Okay.
I just take a picture and if I like it, I put it on my...
You love picking fights on Twitter.
Is it the gram?
I saw one of those.
Is it the gram? Yeah, I'm down with the kids here. It's the gram. Yeah.
Instagram.
And is Twitter just called Twitter? Or
Yeah.
And there's Twitter. I mean, Twitter for me is very newsy and staying in touch with the modern world.
Yeah.
Instagram is much friendlier.
Yeah.
It's kind of, you know, why can't footballers, you know, the other thing, like social media, I think for us, we were very accessible as footballers. You would see us out.
Yes.
You would see us in restaurants, you'd see us shopping. We used to like mixing with the public because we were, you know, it's where we were from, it's how we were brought up. Obviously, times have changed, things are, you know, different now. People have different ideas. There's so much out there. You know, the culture now is changing from, you know, equality and diversity and everything, and we're all moving in the right direction. It's going to take time because it's a generational thing for me. But I think we'll get there. It'll be a tough journey in a lot of different ways. It'll be different for your journey, it'll be different from my journey because we're different generations and we all have to adapt in different ways. And I'm up for change. Footballers now, unfortunately, they're not accessible. You don't see them.
Yeah.
And the only way we do see them is through social media.
Yeah.
And, you know, even
so that's the only outlet we go to.
Yeah, and it's like, so we go to that outlet, but then you get idiots who just want to abuse them.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden they'll be on there and you'll think, oh, that's nice. And then you don't see them because they're getting that much abuse. And it's a very, very murky water. It's to police social media. Each country has different laws, different ideas on how it works. So it's a very, very delicate area. But as far as footballers, I always think it's the right thing at the right time. I wouldn't like to see, a Liverpool fan, I wouldn't like to see, not that he does it, Jordan Henderson doing a TikTok 2 minutes before the kickoff.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? But if I want to see Jordan Henderson, I'd like to see him on TikTok, maybe on a Monday, or Tuesday or a Wednesday, and any other time is acceptable. You know, there is a time and a place for it. So I think we should embrace it. I think we should enjoy it because we get to see it. And yeah, I'm all for change.
Okay.
He says.
Okay. One, talking about celebrating, dancing after goals. You know, it's post-goal celebrations. I'm just gonna mention this one name, Roy Keane. He's one of the most infamous celebration police out there, I would say. Do you agree with having celebration police? One. Second, why is it so guilty for anyone or any team to celebrate a win, no matter how big or small it is?
Thanks for that question. Wow.
He takes his time though.
Obviously, I know Roy very well, and he's in the media now, and you know he's very watchable.
He's watching this interview probably.
He's got an opinion, but we're paid to give an opinion. That's why we're pundits. and he says it as it is, and it's his thoughts, and we've got to appreciate that. We don't all have to agree with his ideas and his philosophies and his thoughts, but they're his, and I respect that. I respect what he thinks, and in some ways I know where he's coming from, and this is back to that. You know, when I said I don't want to see Jordan Henderson doing a TikTok video, he's kind of saying the same thing. It's kind of like, get on with the game. Yeah. You know, it's not about this celebration and like a haircut or whatever.
But isn't celebration part of the game though? But
yeah, and like I said, we've changed, we've evolved. The game is now, it's not the working class man going to the game. You know, it's now families and kids go in the game, and you know, I've got a 5 and an 8-year-old, and my 8-year-old at the minute is doing my head in because obviously he's a Liverpool fan, but he keeps doing he keeps doing Ronaldo celebration around the house, and I'm like,
that is so guilty. That is prohibited, man. That's not.
So there's something in it with Roy Keane, what he's saying. I agree. There shouldn't be any celebrations, but like, but you know, it's a big part of the game. It's, you know, it's keeping. It's why the game is the biggest game in the world, and it needs to evolve, and we need to move. And I get what he's saying. You know, when I was playing, if someone was doing a celebration and we were 3-0 down, and they score and make it 3-1, and he does a celebration, I'd be looking at him and thinking, what are you doing? Like, we need to score another 2. Like, do that when you score the winner.
Yep, understand.
So I do get it, but. You know.
Hey, he wasn't even happy when Manchester City won the cup, so I don't know at what scale of celebration that is allowed in his
and he's very prickly.
But it's okay, but I think it just reflects what kind of football player he is, and we appreciate that anyway. So anyway, thanks so much, Jason.
Can I just ask about the Roy Keane thing, is because you know we have...
Of course, everyone knows, even my mom knows about it.
Okay, Roy, that's for you. Is that what they do?
Yeah, I guess.
Is that a good...
I think that's a new, there's a new TikTok one.
Oh, is that
there's a Korean one, the Korean you love.
Oh. I've seen Tom Cruise doing that. What does that mean?
Get on with the time, Jason. Like you need to have a TikTok now. It's like this. Twist it. Yes. That's for you, Roykin. That's for you, Roykin.
What does it mean? Good luck?
No. I love you. In Korean. Yes. Thanks so much, Jason, for chatting with me, and for BDB fans out there, you guys dapat tengok this interview on YouTube, Astro Arena. Bye.